Hi there, welcome. I'm Richard Sanders, butcher and meat specialist at the Classic Deli. Today we're going to learn the basics of cooking a fillet steak. The fillet steak comes from the beef tenderloin, which does very little work, so it's the tenderest part of the limb. It sits beneath the ribs. It has two parts, the thick end which sits close to the rump and the tail end which sits closer to underneath the ribs. So what we're going to do today is we're going to quickly butcher this so you can see where the fillet steak comes from, and then we'll carry on to cook this beautiful piece of meat. Okay, so now we have our steak ready to cook. We've got to ask ourselves how we're going to cook it. Medium rare? Well, that's got a lot to do with where does the beef come from. Is it grain-fed or is it grass-fed? Now the reason I ask that is, if we have a look at these two pieces of steak here, we've got a beautiful Cornish dry-aged tenderloin, which is grass-fed. You can see that's quite dark in colour. It's been aged, so it's a little bit brown as well, but also there's not much marbling in there. There's a little bit of fat, but not much. Okay, and because it's been aged as well, it's very, doesn't have much water in it. If we look at a Wagyu, which we just cut, Wagyu tenderloin, you can see all this marbling inside. Now, the reason for that is because it's grain-fed, corn-fed, and also got a bit of barley as well. So this is very different with the fat content. So why would we cook this any different? Well, if we're cooking the grass-fed, it hasn't got much fat on it. Because it's dry aged, it doesn't have much water in it as well. So we're going to cook it medium rare. With the Wagyu, because it has a lot of fat in it, we want that fat to melt. If we cook it medium rare, the fat's still going to be in there. It's not going to have a chance for it to melt, giving us that real beautiful buttery flavour. So, grain-fed, cook it to medium. Grass-fed, cook it to medium rare. You can't go wrong, but you can experiment as well. So the question is, which one we're going to cook today? I think we'll cook the Wagyu. Okay, first thing we want to do is to take out our steak at least 1 hour before cooking. The reason for this is we want to have an evenly cooked steak all the way through. Your steak has been in the fridge all day, maybe all night, so it's going to be very cold. If you put that straight in the pan to cook, it's going to burn on the outside and still be cold in the middle, and you're going to have an uneven texture all the way through the meat. So, at least 1 hour before cooking, please. Okay, let's look at our ingredients now. So what we've got here, first of all, we've got our salt. Now you can use kosher salt, or sea salt, or a bit of flaky rock salt. Use anything, but try to get away from using just normal table salt, which is very fine. You want quite coarse salt. The reason for that is we want to create a real nice crust on our steak. If it's too fine, it's going to dissolve into the meat and you're going to lose that beautiful crust. Black pepper, beautiful, freshly cracked black pepper. Now this we want to put a little bit on just before cooking as well. Again, not too fine, because we want to have it quite coarse and thick, so we're going to create that lovely, beautiful crust on top. Black is good, you can use green as well. I would keep away from white pepper. It's got a bit of an offensive flavour when it comes to beef, so stick to black or maybe try green. Okay, now of course, butter. Use unsalted butter. The reason for that is you want to have complete control of the flavour through the cooking process. You're going to be adding salt, so you want to use unsalted butter so it doesn't taint the flavour of the meat. Okay, now it's time to season our steak. Now, don't be shy, be very generous with the seasoning. Salt and pepper on both sides. Pat it in, turn it over. You be generous because you're going to lose 30-40% of this during the cooking process. Also, make sure you get the sides. mop it all up. As you can see, we've got a fair amount there. This will help with the caramelization and also giving us a beautiful crust. Beautiful. You can add a touch of oil as well. This will just help a little bit, making the steak not stick. But we're going to put oil in the pan as well, so it should be fine. Look at that, wonderful. Another very important tool to have in the kitchen is a thermometer to test the meat. Now the reason I say this is you have just bought yourself a very expensive piece of Wagyu fillet. Unless you're cooking steaks every day, 20 steaks a day in the kitchen, and you get the feeling of how to cook a steak properly, then you can use your own skills. But if you're not cooking steak that often, please invest in the thermometer. It's just going to take all the guesswork out of it, and you're not going to ruin your steak. Okay, we're just going to heat up our pan. In the meantime, just have a look at the steak. You've got to work out what your presentation side is going to be. So each steak has got a different side to it. Sometimes they look exactly the same, but sometimes one side just looks a little bit better than the other. So I'm going to choose this side. This side is going to go into the pan first. Okay? Now just to test if your pan is hot enough, we just want to chuck a bit of water on there. We should have a bit of sound. Yep, that's nice and hot. Beautiful. A little bit of oil, just to cover the pan. Stir it around. Should be a little bit of smoke, which is normal. Okay, so we're just going to put the steak in the pan. We want to put it kind of light away from ourselves. So we're not going to have the oil spit up in our face. You want that sound. Okay, so this has been cooking for about a minute and a half. We wanted to just turn it over nicely, always using tongs so we don't pierce the meat. Just turn it over nicely. And that's the kind of crust we want, that's perfect. Okay, so we've done that side as well. So what we're going to do also is just seal the sides of the steak as well. Get that nice and brown. And the searing just locks in all the juices. It's got the colour all around the steak. Okay, so now comes the fun part. Chuck in our garlic, a little bit more oil, and we're chucking our butter. Again, not being shy. Beautiful flavour. Chucking our herbs. Think you need more butter? Put more butter in. Okay. Stir it around. Then what we want to do, spoon it on there, nice and gently. Turn it over. Do exactly the same. And there's beautiful flavours going through the meat. Take a temperature probe. Check the temperature of the meat internally. It's around about 30 degrees. So what we want to do to get even cooked steak is pop it in the oven for about 5-6 minutes. Steak is in the oven. I'm going to cook a really quick mushroom sauce with a bit of red wine and garlic. So it's really easy. All we're going to do, we chuck in some butter, a little bit of oil so it doesn't burn. Then we've got some lovely garlic, just nice. Love the smell of garlic and butter. We've got some shallots. Don't want them to burn, we just want them to get nice and transparent. And then I'm going to add in our mushrooms, just some chestnut mushrooms, lovely. A little bit of salt, touch of pepper. Just let those saute. Add in some more butter if you want. Okay, we're going to take this out. Just going to check the temperature. Just going to check the temperature. Just over 50, which is perfect. We're just going to take this out, put it on a cold wooden board, and let it rest. Most importantly, let it rest. You can cook the sauce while your steak is resting. It's important to let your steak rest for at least 8 to 10 minutes. So ample time to make this beautiful sauce. Just adding a bit of old English mustard. You can use Dijon, but I just like the spiciness and look a little bit more. Okay, now I'm just going to add a bit of drinking wine. Nothing fancy or flash. Stir it in. Heat off. I'm just going to add a little bit of butter and quite a bit of black pepper, because I like my sauce quite hot. Taste it if you think it needs a bit more seasoning. Okay, so our steak has been resting for about 8 minutes now. So we're just going to plate up. I'm going to keep it really, really simple. I'm just going to add a little bit of mash with lots of butter and cream in it. Cool. And then we've got our mushroom sauce. Nice and rich with all that red wine, butter and garlic. We've just steamed off some really nice beans as well. And then our beautiful steak, pop that right on top. Voila, beautiful. So that's it. Thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something new about cooking fillet steak. Make sure you've got some very good vino on hand and cook like a chef at home. Enjoy.